friends. Today I want to talk about how to expand your consciousness, subconscious mind on personal experience. How to become a different person. You will see this world as you have never seen it. Your feelings, emotions, and sensations will be indescribable. This is a completely different level of understanding of the reality that surrounds us. This is another stage in the evolution of your body and your brain, which makes you superhuman. This is a real story that happened to me, and that changed me. After which I will never be the same again. If you listen to it to the end, you will understand everything. This will be a lesson for someone. It will save someone's life. Someone will turn over their consciousness. In conclusion, I will explain why this will change your consciousness and make you a different person. But I will have to start with the basics. At the end of this story, you will understand what I have been leading to for so long and why all the details were needed. Like I said, this is my story. It won't be short. There will be no mind-blowing spectacle in it. There will be no entertainment content here. It's not prank or comedy. I have not flown into space. I have not descended to the bottom of the ocean. This is a trip to Poland. I will not use any computer graphics and super video editing. Perhaps this video will not be mind-blowing, but it will be from fragments of my life and my personal photos. I want to share this with you. To begin with, I'm not a rich man. I come from a simple family where my father worked as a firefighter and my mother worked at a factory. Now they are retired and I think every day that they would be healthy and live for a very long time, so they are the most precious thing I have. I am a simple immigrant who arrived 5 years ago from Ukraine to Poland. I'm not rich. I'm not a fan. I'm not a business coach. I don't have millions. I know 3 languages, but unfortunately English is not one of them. That's why I have to use a special program for voicing. For this reason, the voice is not mine and sounds a little strange. I am the simplest and most ordinary person, trying to survive in this measure, looking for a better life and putting a huge amount of effort into it. I work at the most ordinary job. This is a ceramics factory, and after that I go to a second job. Usually, on average, this is about 15 hours a day. This is my work schedule of life. I'm working on Saturday too. For some time I worked on Sundays too. I usually get into the pack at 4 in the morning and come home at 9 in the evening. There were times when I worked even longer. And it so happened that I came home, slept for 45 minutes and went to work again. I have to squeeze as much as I can, but I'm not complaining. I am grateful for what I have. Parents in another country, whom I miss very much. We see each other very rarely. The last time was a few years ago. Unfortunately, I don't have a loved one, a soulmate. I don't have a family. For some reason life is so smooth. I try to rationally use the resources and finances that I earn. I don't like noisy parties and lots of people. But I am madly in love with nature and animals. Privacy and silence. All this will help you to paint my portrait and understand my character. I've always been crazy about a car. A few years later I was able to buy it for myself, and now it's my child, whom I love madly. The story of my rebirth begins with the fact that I have saved a certain amount of money and planned a small trip. I love to drive a car and visit various parks, forests, lakes. Everything in the world is relative. For someone flying on a private plane or a personal yacht is an ordinary thing. Someone throws millions of dollars to the wind without even thinking. It's not about me. Usually my trips were short, only to one place and back. I couldn't afford to go slick Delco. But this time I decided to go a little further. Well, since it so happened, I decided to stop by a few more places along the way, since I'm already going along this route. At this time, my route took up almost 1,000 kilometers. I have visited 40 different places. Mountains, forests, lakes, castles. I understood that this trip would not be cheap for me. That's why I decided to sacrifice comfort and sleep in the car. All I needed was a supply of clothes and water. I also decided to cook food at home, so as not to spend money on a cafe. It was a huge number of sandwiches, which, thank God, did not have time to deteriorate. Since the time of my trip fell on the month of October, the weather was beautiful, just like I dreamed. I understood that this was the last moment of autumn, the last warm days, the last contact of the warm rays of the sun with the indescribable colors of autumn. I couldn't miss this moment and decided to do it by all means. The whole journey took me 5 days, since I wanted to see and examine each place better. I love walking and have walked a crazy number of kilometers on this journey. It was quite risky because the car is already 20 years old, and anything could happen on the way. Some places were especially roadless, deserted and unfavorable to any breakdowns. I realized this risk. I understood that I could find myself in a very unpleasant situation, alone, where there are no people, there is no civilization, there is nothing. But the most important thing is that there is not even a connection and the internet, in order to somehow get out of this situation. I consciously took this risk, understanding what my brain was telling me, but listening to my heart. In the end, it was the best thing that ever happened to me in my life. It's not even about what I saw, were these places unsurpassed and indescribable. I haven't seen any wonders of the world. No, it's about the state of mind, about the emotional test that I passed. And the story that changed me. The stories I've been leading to since the very beginning of this conversation. The story that changed me forever. Which turned the whole world upside down in my eyes. A story after which I will never be the same again. My route was very clearly planned. Since I had very little time, I left on Friday after work at 12 a.m. and drove all night. In order not to miss the time. I understood that the route is very long and there will be a lot of time to get around it, so I sacrificed one working day and took a day off on Monday. I had to take 2 more at this point, but we'll come back to that later. Every day I had to arrive at the right point, and with the first rays of the sun I had to move out on foot. It so happened that I started my journey even in the dark to see the dawn, and the first rays of the sun are already on the top of the mountain. Naturally on foot, just like that, it's important to me. This is a reunion with nature. I ended my day with the last rays of the sun and sunset. These were the harbingers that it was time to get ready for bed. At night, I could only come to a new point, so that with the new rays of the sun I could move out again on an amazing journey. The fusion of man and nature. The plan was to arrive at the farthest point on the first night, and then gradually move back towards the house. My first planned place was the mountains. There should have been an observation tower somewhere on the top. Nothing special. My goal was to find her, see and climb it. Here, on the very first day, something began that changed me in this way. Nothing foreshadowed trouble. Ordinary mountains, ordinary forest at first glance. Initially, when I was just preparing for my journey, I looked through every place I planned on the internet and got acquainted with it beforehand. I looked at photos and reviews of people who were there. I drew attention to the fact that it is not easy to find this tower, and many did not succeed. Then I didn't pay much attention to it. I reached this place by dawn. There was a small town at the foot of these mountains, then the road leading higher and higher. As a result, as such, the road is over. Then I realized that it was time to leave the car and finally start my journey on foot. I felt tired after a working week and after driving all night. But there was no time to sleep. I firmly decided to go and fall out the next night. In the place where I left the car, the internet and the connection disappeared. It wasn't my first time in such a meditation, so it didn't scare me. Having figured out where I am, having remembered where I left my car, at the end I moved out on a long-awaited journey. I was climbing higher. The sun was starting to rise. Everything was as I wanted. Everything was exactly as I dreamed. I clearly paid attention at that moment to the sun, where it is and that it is just rising, because it was important to meet the dawn in such a place. Going further, I began to understand why there were so many reviews that this place is hard to find. There were a lot of trails, and they were only slightly visible. But the saddest thing is that each of them led in an incomprehensible direction, and in the end just ended in the interior of the forest, without leading to anything. But I didn't despair. I missed the time count, because it was fine. I was just walking, swinging from one path to another, bypassing various obstacles, fallen trees, streams, shrubs. The further I went, the thicker the forest became and more impassable. I finally found this tower. Yes, it was really difficult to find her, but I did it. Maybe it was luck, maybe my perseverance, at all costs to find her. I didn't see anything amazing there, but I didn't regret a bit. I examined her, climbed to the top. The first point was counted. Now all that remained was to get back to the car and go to the next one. Stepping back a bit, I'm not particularly good at navigating the terrain. I have a lousy guide. I can walk around my neighborhood in the city in the evening, and the houses are all the same. As a result, going to a certain place, I can get out from the other side of the area, smile and go back to where I need to go. So I'm going to step in the opposite direction to the car. All this happens in the mountains, where the angle of elevation sometimes reaches amazing heights. It wasn't the Rocky Mountains. I don't do mountaineering. The maximum height of these was up to 1,500 meters. They are completely covered with forests. The length of these mountains is quite large. They start from Poland, then go to the Czech Republic, and then honestly I don't even know where further. It's just a mountain range of our planet that spreads smoothly over the surface, moving further into the Tatra Mountains. The extent of these mountains is amazing, and the scale of the forests is the same. This is thousands of hectares. Well, here I am, going to my car. I think you've already figured out what I'm getting at. Full of energy and excitement, thinking about continuing the journey. My path lay through a forest in which there are no roads, no trails, no identification signs, pointers. The phone is completely useless since there is no communication or navigation. I was clearly sure where I needed to go. The forest was getting thicker. It's even hard for me to remember now when exactly the first thought that I got lost was born in my mind. Maybe I didn't want to let them into my head. The turning point happened when I came to the car, and it wasn't there. Yes, the car was not stolen, I just came to the wrong place. That's when it alerted me a little. I began to make my way further through these impenetrable bushes. When I came for the second time and again found no traces of the car, I began to worry. So after a few hours I started to panic. I make my way through the wilderness of the forest, first down and then up again, climbing with all my might. Now I have already realized for sure that I am lost. I didn't get lost in the park near the house. There is no connection here, there are no people here. There are no shops and pharmacies here. And I only have a bottle of water and one sandwich with me. I don't have the skill to squeeze. I don't have any special equipment. All I have is a knife the size of a toothpick. I understand that there are definitely snakes here. I know 100% that there are wild boars here. I know that there are definitely wolves here. And I heard that there are bears here. In some areas there are lynxes. Here I fully realized the situation I was in. Or rather, I didn't realize it, but I was in a panic, because I realized what was happening. After that, I start panicking, practically running to break through these thickets. I really hoped not to meet any wild animal on my way, otherwise it could have ended tragically. I made my way to places where I really hoped not to twist and break my leg. In this case, there would be zero chances to get out and survive. I also really hoped not to slip and fall on trees and bitches lying everywhere. Such a wound would also deprive me of the chance to survive. To be honest, I don't remember how many times the thought occurred to me that I would die here. It wasn't just a walk anymore. It wasn't just entertainment anymore. It wasn't funny anymore. The only thing I knew for sure at that time was that if I didn't get out before night, then I might not live to see the morning. My brain couldn't think rationally at that moment. Perhaps it was a protective function of the body. He turned off the brain, and gave all the strength and energy to the muscles. All I did was climb, then change course, then climb again. After a certain amount of time, I realized that a lot of effort had been spent, but there was no result. And I stopped for a moment. Here the brain has already started to turn on. I decided that since there is no navigation, there is moss on the trees, it will tell you where the north is and where the south is. Then I realized, well done, you're a genius, because it's really brilliant. And what will this give you if you initially did not pay attention to where you were, where you started from, and from which side you went? From the north or the south? Then I started thinking further. And finally I remembered the sun. What I noticed and what I paid attention to initially. After all, I was proud that I started my journey at dawn. I remember perfectly where it was. It was on the left. Yes, time has passed, but it definitely shouldn't be on the right. As a result, I've been walking in a completely different direction all this time. The road wasn't easy on this one, but I saw a light at the end of the tunnel. I gathered the last of my strength and began to fight my way through the thickets. I knew I had to get out by all means. I was even more worried not for myself, but I knew that Mom was going crazy at home, because I hadn't been in touch for a very long time. I was not so afraid of death as I was afraid to think what would happen to her after this news. As a result, after a long journey, I finally met the first person. And after meeting him, I realized that everything was almost over. After some time I reached my car. A few more people on the way asked me if I knew where the tower was. My answer wasn't rude, but I made it clear that it's better not to look for her. Such was the first day of my journey. During these 5 days I got into some more scrapes, but they were not so significant compared to this one. I won't tell you about them. The next day, going further along my route, I tried to comprehend what had happened to me. I could think straight now, but not then. I have passed all my way, all the places that I planned to visit. Yes, everything did not go according to the plan that I thought. For this, as I mentioned earlier, I had to take 2 additional days. I decided to finish what I started, by all means. Arriving home, I was insanely tired, even exhausted. But incredibly happy. It was just a unique journey. The next morning I felt that something was wrong. Something has changed. I couldn't understand and describe what was happening. Something is wrong with the world and over my head. Or maybe both. My feelings of the surrounding world were completely different. I could not find an explanation for this at that moment. Then I randomly auditioned as psychologist, on a completely different topic. It was about brain neurons. That's when everything fell into place. In simple and accessible words, although I am not a doctor and not a professor, but I will try to explain. Our brain is trying to process any information. Remember any action. Put it on the shelf. Starting with elementary things and ending with large-scale ones. All acquired knowledge and experience is debugged in our brain. The larger the event, the more new neurons are formed in our brain. A person who has never seen a banana will not be able to 100% understand what it looks like. Similarly, when we taste the same banana, we send information to the brain that this is a banana and its taste is exactly like that. Now we know this, since this information is recorded in our head. A certain cell has been created in our brain. Now let's get back to more global situations and serious stresses. As a result of such an impact, new neurons appear in the brain in the same way, completely different connections, which didn't exist before. The brain gets what it has never seen or felt. As a result, significant changes are taking place. After such a situation, you completely change. Your view is changing. Your worldview is changing. You see something you haven't seen before. Your feelings are not described and are not transferable. It's not possible to imagine lying on the couch. This is not to attract by the power of thought or watching TV. Only after a serious upgrade of your brain. After serious changes in it. After the newly formed neural connections, you change. You are no longer like everyone else. Your reaction and thoughts work differently. You see the solution to every household problem differently. Your ideas and thoughts work in a completely different way. It's an accelerator, it's the nitro of your brain. After this, you realize that there is no problem that cannot be solved. There is no problem that cannot be solved. If there is a civilization, there are people, food, water nearby, and even if you don't know the language, you will find a solution. Now there is something in your brain that most people don't have. Your neurons are different from theirs. The brain works faster. He is ready for the worst. He is ready to survive in any deadly conditions. Search for answers to problems to which there is no answer. It's an indescribable feeling. These are indescribable opportunities that you will not be able to acquire without experiencing such stress. Without giving the brain the opportunity to get this experience and grow these new neurons. Friends, I am not calling you to madness. I do not in any way urge you to commit dangerous and thoughtless acts that threaten your life and your vision. I'm just telling my story of rebirth. I'm revealing to you the secret of how it works. Because I have never seen such information and such examples anywhere. Meditation is great. The power of thought is great. The force of gravity is wonderful. But no matter what it is, it will not give you new neurons in the brain, those very neurons that make you super people. Changing your consciousness and subconscious. This is an extension of the boundaries of our brain. I am more than sure that it also works with finances. Why do rich people often say you want $1 million, but you only earn 1,000? You are not ready for $1 million. Your subconscious is not ready for this. Your awareness of reality is not ready for this. You don't have the right neural connections to just understand and realize how this is possible. I have described to you the way of removing boundaries, acquiring new neurons, improving and accelerating your brain. So it was with me. This one gives you a start for unlimited possibilities, ideas, thoughts and problem solving in the future. You start thinking like you've never thought before. Your ideas, thoughts and solved problems go to a completely different level. My story is a combination of circumstances. Of course, I didn't plan this on purpose. None of us intentionally get into shit, but it happens. I am insanely grateful to life for this experience. It was incredible. It changed me for the better always. Will I go on such a trip again? Of course yes, 1000%. But now I will be more prepared. Finally, friends, I would like to add, never judge or condemn people without knowing them. Yes, some were lucky, but not everyone was given everything in this life easily. If you see a successful person and have a beautiful photo with this person, you don't need to be jealous. Because sometimes we have no idea what a person went through, what he refused. What did a person do? because we only see a picture, the end result. We don't know, but this man could break his legs in blood and tear his hands while climbing to his goal. Don't judge by the cover without reading the book in full. In the end, I would like to discuss once again an important aspect of all that I have said. I'm not trying to make myself look like a hero. I'm not trying to tell you what a great thing I did. I do not exalt myself on a pedestal equating to God. There are a huge number of people in our world who have passed more serious tests after going through hell. Of course, I understand this, absolutely and indisputably. I didn't survive in the forest for 3 months, 3 years. I didn't tear the bear's jaw with my bare hands. I was not accepted by a pack of wolves into my family. I went through the ordeal of experiencing stress at the same time. My brain has experienced serious stress. I was lucky that I got out after half a day and nothing happened to me. But then I didn't know about it. I had no idea that everything would end so quickly and without consequences. At that moment, the most terrible scenario was in my head. I was preparing for death, without exaggeration. I couldn't find a way out. I didn't know what to do. The essence of this whole story is not about the feat, but about what happened next. About changes and changes in the future. In my brain, in my worldview, in my views. But I have already told you about this in detail. Everything is in your hands. If you want to gain super abilities, reveal them. They are already you, but only in a dormant state. In the end, I want to say, do not confuse such a stressful situation with extreme skydiving and everything else. Do not confuse the adrenaline rush and this kind of emotion with a situation where you overestimate your whole life. You begin to understand the value of your life. You begin to realize the pettiness of all the problems surrounding us compared to the case when your life is hanging by a thread from death. After passing such a test, you will realize that there are no unsolvable problems for you anymore. Everything that was baffling before, now only causes a smile. I have a great rule in any life situation. I immediately ask myself the question, am I going to die? If not, then this one is not a problem.